What's going on, Monkey Pod universe? Hopefully, you can all hear me. I can see and hear Jade. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, how are you?
You're there as well. And Greg. Hey, Greg.
What's up, guys?
We are here. All right. Welcome, everybody. We're so excited to have you here. If you are here already, go ahead and find the chat inside of the Riverside platform. Should be over on the right-hand side, and give us a hello. And we'll probably remind you to do that again in a minute or two, perhaps as more people join in as well. So today's webinar is all about backing up the data that you have inside of your CRM, or kind of the various database tools that you might have inside of your business. And I think that what's interesting about this conversation is that a lot of us kind of take backups for granted. Greg and I were facing a little bit of a problem with our website a couple of weeks ago, and we found out that we were using 6 different mechanisms of backup, and it was like this abundance of things. But we were really trusting other people to take care of that for us, right? We were trusting our service provider or our software, or, various other people to do it, and weren't necessarily taking a lot of responsibility ourselves for how our business tools and business systems were backed up. So that's what today's session is all about. To talk about the data inside of your CRM. And perhaps most importantly, today is our special guest, Jeff Arnold. Jeff Arnold is the creator of I won't say brand new, but relatively new product called CRMBackup.com, which is part of his bigger consulting company, ForceBot. So, Jeff, do you want to give a little intro to yourself to kick this thing off? Because certainly CRMBackup.com is a product that you sell, but you've done lots of work with CRM systems and databases and integration products and custom integrations. You want to just give us the more zoomed out version rather than only the backup version?
Sure. Real quick background. Yeah, I started using Keap actually when it was Infusionsoft back in 2007. I've been working on pre-cloud, which really makes me old. But pre-cloud, I was working on helping to connect all of our different systems when I worked in a different industry. But I fell in love with automation. And so I've had my company now for 12 years, and we work on doing automation, not only with Keap, we work with GHL, we work with Salesforce, we work with all different types of CRMs, but primarily our focus is working on building the integrations between all of the different third-party pieces of software. So in my experience working with Keap, we came across the fact that having the ability to easily undo something that we did was really important in a timely manner. So we decided to come up with the CRM backup platform, which we have for Keap, and now we're rolling out for high level as well.
Very cool. I just want to start with framing the conversation of why is this topic important? Why, and I'll give my answer first. Maybe we can go around if you all have an answer. Backing up data in general, I think, is important because of how much trust we're putting on platforms. That's my opinion about it, right? And that we're, I'm sure that back in the old days when we had a server sitting on the floor in a closet in the building, you'd make certain backup decisions around, tapes and disks and things like that. And as the world kind of moved on to cloud, well, we just have this immense trust that that's all being taken care of by somebody else. And in some cases, maybe it is being well taken care of by somebody else. Do we know enough about where it is and how it works and what kinds of information we can get back if we need to get it back? And if there's something that those third parties are not going to take care of for us, do we know what those things are? And again, one piece in my mind is related to when everyone points the finger at everybody else, right? Oh, you've got a calendar tool and you've got a billing tool. Well, the billing tool's help desk says it must be their fault. These people say it must be their fault. If you're stuck in the middle, what kind of control do you have over your information? So that's my take of the 4 of us on stage right now about why backing up systems is important, or knowing what data you have is important. Anyone else want to share?
When I was in the mortgage industry, we had an office here in Las Vegas, and we had all of our servers in this dedicated server room. We had our backup tapes there, and I also made sure that everything we had was backed up into the cloud. Well, we came in after the New Year's holiday one time and all of our servers were gone. Somebody broke in and stole all of the servers with all the information we had. So they took our backup tapes as well. So had we only depended on physical backup tapes, we would have been completely lost. But we had everything backed up to the cloud, so we were able to get one other computer configured as a server within about an hour, and we were up and running with about 2 to 3 hours after we started to get the data downloaded. So backup became very important to me early on.
Yeah. And the idea that you can't make money without your system, right? Like that 3 or 4 hours, pretty stressful 3 or 4 hours. Absolutely. Jade, Greg, do either of you have any like backup data related trauma? any terrible things that have happened or keep you stressed out?
I wouldn't say trauma. I would say more like empathetic trauma because, and I mentioned this in a promo video I made for this webinar, but like when you're in communities like the best community in the world, also known as OG membership, monkeypod, ogmembership.com, trying to make everyone get the FOMO, get the FOMO.
Smooth.
But seriously, like I'm in that community and I'm also in many communities because I'm extraordinarily social. Hi. But in nerdy communities, like the best ones. And I feel so bad for people when something happens. And what I'm really excited to talk about, like, and we'll get to this later, but like, what's funny is it's not just human error. So, when we think data loss, we think like, oh, a user accidentally deleted 50,000 contacts and you're like, everything's gone, which is I think that's what people think of when they think data loss, but that's not the only situation. And I've seen it's very emotional, okay. So yeah, let's say it is traumatic because it's people's hard-earned contacts. It's their order history that tells them what their lifetime value is. It's your entire data set that tells you, what you've earned and is it working? Is your customer journeys all there? So, it hasn't personally happened to me. But I've watched people and it's heartbreaking.
I want to add something, but first I need to compliment Jade's plant background. If you know Jade, growing plants has never been a strength of hers. And so the fact that there are multiple thriving in the background, that's growth, both figuratively and literally, Jade. So the data conversation, like, it's so not sexy. I get it, like data integrity, data backup, like it is among the driest of like phrases you could mutter, but it's so important because we are dependent on all these other tools and systems, right? And our database is the one that we own. And I have seen countless small businesses build their following in whatever social channel, and then their platform gets restricted or the algorithm changes and like they're hamstrung because they thought they had this reach, and all of a sudden, sometimes overnight, it's either gone or limited, and that's scary. If you're dependent on that audience for income, and we all are, like, to have that control be something that you don't directly manage is a lot of like risk to be absorbing. And so the email audience or the CRM database is where you have ownership. That's why we drive to opt-ins from social, so that we have that contact detail and we can communicate with them on our terms. Now, as Jeff, I'm sure, will tell us, like, the existing CRM systems are safe and they're doing what they can to back up your data and to protect it. That's part of what you pay for, but it's not bulletproof. And so I love that I've heard Jeff describe it as like, you pay for car insurance, you pay for health insurance, but like, what about data insurance? And that's sort of the space that we're emerging in. So if your business, if the idea of starting over from scratch is scary to you, then this conversation is a good way to like give yourself some peace of mind around protecting what you have already built.
Absolutely. All right. Good points all around, everybody, on the why we're here, why data is important, which stresses it out. So here's the question. What do we all think is the top 2 risks to our data? The two that if I think back to the blog posts come to mind, is the humans, right? The humans that get to interact with your data, whether they're doing something accidentally, something they're doing maybe a little sketchy to give themselves a little bit of an advantage, or something that they're doing maliciously, awfully. Let's hack, let's delete, let's do a big ugly thing to this data set. That's what I have in mind for number one. And then number two, which I think is a sneakier one, is that when we start to integrate more systems together, do we know, hey, when we say, yes, you have my, I trust this application, I authorize this one to, create, edit, delete data on my behalf, what happens if that behaves in a way that we all just didn't expect? Those are the two that I have, the humans and the integrations. Do you all have two different ones when I put this slide up, or does this sound like the two you would say as well?
Those are the ones I would say. I mean, one you can do mass damage if you're doing it yourself manually, but usually that's a one-off thing. But automation is where you can do a lot of mass damage.
Right. Yeah. You're like, yeah, maybe I want to delete everybody who's not engaged at 12 months. Oops, look, I ran that bot on everyone who's not been engaged for 12 minutes. What am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Right? And something weird that happens in that way. Greg J, do you have anything to add, or do you think we're on the right track there?
Yeah, nothing to add. I mean, those are the two biggest risks I see. And I specifically mentioned within the human error, imports. I am not a spreadsheet wizard.
Oh.
I know that many people are, but I have definitely had a error in a formula that has all the IDs one row off, and then I do an import, and I'm like, wait a minute, why does Cameron have Jade's email, or back and forth, or what have you? So fortunately, some of those things you can repair with spreadsheet and then a re-import. But I've been in that scenario where you're one click away from data scrambling in a way that is hard to unravel.
Absolutely, yeah. I started out asking a question about data, what stresses us all out, and I can feel my own anxiety growing as time goes on here, because I've done those 10,000 row spreadsheet data migrations and things like that before, and felt that is the VLOOKUP right? Do I have the right reference? Did I accidentally sort column F without sorting column B? All that kind of stuff. So okay, so I want to shift gears a little.
I think it's really funny, Cam, that the answer to 1 and 2 is humans and not humans. Pretty much covers all of the bases. And there is some gray area, right? Like you set up an automation and it accidentally screwed everybody up. It's not just oops, I select all and deleted everybody. But pretty much the two broad categories, which mind blowing, but very important cover. Yeah.
What time of day are you most afraid of? Well, both daytime and nighttime. The dark and the light. The monsters under the bed and the total lack of monsters in my life. Yeah.
Right. Well, it's funny too, because if I'm troubleshooting an issue, I'm like, well, there's two things that could have happened here. Either the automation is doing something wrong, there's a glitch or it's broken, or you screwed up. And
the worst is when you're picking up the phone to call that customer service just to give somebody hell, and then you see oh shoot, there was an override data checkbox and this idiot over here didn't know it was there, right?
Did you turn it off and back on again? Yeah.
Every day that ends with Y, Jim says.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want to shift into a little bit now is to talk about those couple of subjects, right? And Jeff does have a slide deck for us as well to share about some of the solutions to these problems. But before we get to the slide deck, I just want to have a conversation about kind of two big categories. The first category is about the responsibilities of backup, right? Because one of the things that we don't want to do is suggest that software providers aren't backing up their systems, right? If you're Keap, if you're High Level, if you're Salesforce, if you're Microsoft Azure, if you're WP Engine, if you're Thinkific, right? If you're one of these big software SaaS companies, you probably have amazingly robust backup systems, right? You have data centers that are copying locally and then are redundantly copying again to another state or time zone or continent. Can you talk a little bit, Jeff, in your experience about that work that SaaS companies do I mean, maybe you can even give us a little insight about how brilliant what they do is. What is their responsibility? And then the follow-up question in a minute or two after you talk about this is going to be, where does their responsibility end? Like, where do they say, if you call support and say, I need my backup, they're going to say, oh, that's not really actually what, our massive software company is responsible for. So could you just give us a behind-the-scenes thought about, the conventional things that big SaaS companies are doing to protect people's data?
Yeah, I mean they're all backing up. You're 100% right. They're not just flying by the seat of their pants and they have one computer sitting in an office that's running everything. They have everything connected through multiple cloud platforms. They have data pools. They have all sorts of things where they have all this information stored. But when we talk about the backup system, we'll talk a little more, as you mentioned, a little bit more in depth, giving a quick overview of what it is. The design and the reason we have what we've created is for you to have instant access to these things. Think about it as maybe like a law office, right? A law office may have had a court case that they worked on a year ago. Well, they may have that data, but it may be in the storage shed, right? So what happens is when you need to go back to, say, Keap or GHL and you say, hey, I need to go and get this data, they go, okay, great. We have your request now. We're going to go and retrieve that data. So now they have to go to like the virtual storage shed and go and get that data, bring it back, get it back into the system, and then be able to present it to you. So that process may take a week or two. And so that's where our system comes in. We allow you to go in and get immediate access to the information and restore it immediately, as opposed to having to waiting for a week or two and pay whatever the fee is to get that done. So you're right in the sense that these companies do have very robust backups, but a lot of times they don't have them sitting forefront. They have them where the data is available, they can go get it, but it's not instantly available.
Yeah. I don't mind that analogy of like the Iron Mountain truck going to pick up the physical box of paper. Like, yeah, it's there, but it's not here, right? And when I think about what the SaaS companies do really, really well, it's that copy of an entire database, and a copy of the entire database, right? It's like, if it's in a Microsoft data center or an Amazon data center in California, there's a backup there, right? Probably on that actual. I used to work in a government office that was very anti-cloud, and I went into the IT department one day, and there was this poster that just said, "The cloud is just someone else's computer," which is not exactly true. It's much more sophisticated than just someone else's computer, but it's not just another computer. Like, there is a physical piece of machinery in some super secure building in California or in Texas or in New York or in Toronto, where this physical information actually sits on real hard drives, right? And real processors and real RAM, like from real computers, go and access these things and serve up the services that we want. So is that how it usually works? That like inside of that machine, inside of that building that has your app on it, they're saying, well, here's the production copy, here's the backup copy. And then that backup copy is saying, but what if this whole building has a earthquake? Well, now that backup copy has to go through the magic of the internet to the other time zone, the other coast. Is that still how it works, or is that how it worked 10 years ago? What do they do for good? Like, how do we complement?
No, I mean, you're right. It's being backed up. It's being backed up to the cloud. They're going to have incremental backups at different time frames during the day. Exactly what those are, I don't necessarily know. But you brought up a really good point, which is security. And so it also plays in when you do contact, and I'm going to keep using Keap as the example just so we can have a single point of contact. But, for example, in Keap, they have security procedures so that their front end customer service rep can't go into their archived backups and do something. So if they want to get into those backups, they need to go through multiple security levels and get the access they need in order to go and retrieve that data. Just like, that example of like the Iron Mountain thing, right? Not every single person in the company has a key to go open up the shed and go grab whatever they want. You need to go through protocols. So they do have it all backed up. They typically have it backed up in multiple locations. They have it backed up on the cloud, which means it's kind of dispersed everywhere. But they also have those protocols in place so that in order to get to that data, you do need to go through multiple layers, and that takes time in order for them to get that.
That's like totally oddly refreshing and annoying all at the same time. Because like if I accidentally deleted 100,000 contacts, like I want that back right now. And it sounds to me that like, A, my data is safe, but B, it's not the flick of a Wingardium Leviosa. You know what I mean?
Right.
We're all used
And
to Control Z, undo, right?
Control Z.
That's what we're used to doing. But unfortunately, a lot of our CRMs don't have that capability.
When we asked the group earlier, like, what are the two things that go wrong? It was like malicious actors, doing bad things, hacking and so on was the problem. So just as you were talking about, like, not everyone has the key to go and like unlock that file, I was like, well, shoot, that's annoying and absolutely the point, right? That like that frontline support rep can't say, oh, you want a million rows of data from this app ID, have at it, right? And of course, there's some like friction probably built into that process on purpose. Okay, so let's break down some examples of the things that maybe the administrator or the owner of the CRM system might want to watch for inside of their company. These are the things that go wrong with data, right? So we've talked earlier about the humans maybe having problems with data, and then the technical, like the integration errors and things like that might go wrong with data. So if you were the owner or administrator of a CRM system, what are the kind of layers or examples of things that go wrong with humans? I have three. I have accidents, malicious behaviors, and like suspicious behaviors, right? And I in my mind have a difference between what I mean by malicious and suspicious. But do you have any thoughts? Like, what goes wrong with humans? Can you give some examples?
Those cover it. Accidents obviously are.
Where do we begin with human accident? I mean, in my head, I was like, oh God.
Especially when you get a lot of people involved, right? I mean, if it's only you working inside the software, then you're the person you have to be concerned about. And you can still make mistakes. You can delete a record, you can delete a phone number or an email address and not have a record of what that is. We would allow you to go back and retrieve that. Talking about I'd like to hear your definition of suspicious and malicious.
Yeah.
But in that definition and in that process, we've had clients where they have multiple salespeople, and they found that some of the leads were changing owners, and they didn't know how that was happening. So we were trying to go through and analyze our automations we had built internally. We also went through and looked at our integrations that we had externally to see if anything there was changing it. And what we found by utilizing the backup system, because we do have the ability to see who changed the data, and I'll show you that a little later, but we found that there was a specific salesperson who might have overheard a phone call that was going on for a qualified rep, and they would go in and change the owner to themselves, and then they would call that person, they would start working that lead. And they were getting some transactions they shouldn't have gotten. So having the backup system, we were able to see that there was a pattern of these people changing ownership, and it was changed by the rep that was taking them over.
Right. So I saw Jade says change logs, the snitch that can't get stitches or won't need stitches. Yeah, exactly. That was the thing that when I said, suspicious versus malicious, I in my mind wanted to separate those things out, because you told me that exact story of, can you imagine working on a sales floor and thinking, I want to be the top performer, I want to get a good commission, and that red hot lead just came in. And then to find out that every sales rep has the power to reassign lead ownership or, scoop up those sweetest deals. I wanted to be able to separate those out from, somebody who maybe isn't trying to cause company-wide damage, who maybe didn't get their termination notice, but also have the power to delete an entire database. Like that stuff, or hacking, that stuff feels like the malicious category for me. But that suspicious category is like, well, that person's not trying to tank the whole company. And the sales leader or the IT manager might not be hyper aware of that, individual change happening, but certainly that behavior of that sales rep was suspicious, right? Like they were acting in a way that was not going to take the whole company down, but certainly manipulating data for their own reasons. So the accidental example is where I I think a good example would be that spreadsheet example from earlier, right? I got back from a trade show. It's my job to take this Excel spreadsheet of the leads we got at the trade show and load it up into the CRM, and then find out that I had, the email column in the wrong spot, mapped improperly. Oh, I've made a mistake, right? Or I've taken a customer service call. They said my phone number is changing. Type in the phone number, hang up the phone, push save, look at the screen, and there's an entire digit missing or something like that, right? Like things that are just accidents. The second one is where, there's that person who's maybe manipulating data for their own benefit. And then the third one is there's maybe person manipulating the data at the detriment to the entire company because they want to do damage. Do you have a sense of which one of those is the most common?
Oh, the human, what we call the fat finger errors, right? The human errors by far the one that is most common. I mean, the malicious suspicious is very infrequent, but it's something that is very detrimental to the people involved, obviously, at the time. But in most cases, the restorers that we see are people who did exactly what you said, right? Hey, I need to change my phone number, need to change my email address. And whenever they go in and edit the data, they save it, and now there is no change history available, especially inside of Keap. You can't see a change history of what was there. And so now you just completely lost the one phone number that you had, and now you have another one that's missing a digit or it has an extra digit, and you don't recall what it was supposed to be. So being able to go in very quickly and see what was there before, you can go ahead and restore that very quickly. So those are the most common things that happen. And usually it's not a mass casualty type situation. Most people aren't deleting their entire database, but it's usually going in and, like you said, running uploads or something like that, and it just does some damage to the data that's there. They can go back in and they have confidence they can go back and just restore that information.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and I imagine the malicious thing, that stuff you're talking about that the SaaS companies do really well, the malicious where an entire database gets deleted, that's when you might be happy to call the company and say, I don't care about the little details. I just want to be before the minute that guy did that thing, exactly. Right? But it's the individual stuff that's more challenging. I do want to give you some time and kind of, again, tee up why I wanted to see the CRM Back-Up platform that you have today. Before we do that, let's just do the second part, which is when the technology goes wrong. Maybe because the integration, and we got, the software provider saying, well, you shouldn't have connected Zapier to it. That's why all the data changed or something like that, right? I think there's probably, maybe we can come up together with like 2 or 3 examples. There's one that I want to share that I've stolen from you because you shared it with me the last time we talked about what goes wrong with data. It might be an unintended consequence of something like, maybe someone is using Keap or any CRM system to sell dance lessons, right? And dad does all the correspondence to get this dance lesson set up, but then mom comes in with the credit card and fills out the order form, and now we've got a mismatched first name or a mismatched phone number or something like that wasn't it wasn't anything malicious. It probably wasn't even bad design. It was just some behavior in the way the technology works that now has something mixed up. And it's like, well, wouldn't it be nice if we could go back from the first name to the other first name? That's an example that you shared with me that I thought was really interesting. Any other ones that are kind of illustrative of this whole like integrations going awry?
Yeah, so if you're putting together automation from Zapier, from Make, whichever system you're using, feeding, plus this feeding data in, anywhere you're integrating with your software and you can update things in mass is when you can make errors. So like, earlier today I was talking to my technology services manager and we had one of our automations that, had a glitch in it. And, he told me that someone made an error in putting the automation together and had a semicolon in the wrong place or forgot a semicolon or whatever it may be. But, luckily that was not running in mass against a database. But if you did something where you said, hey, we're going to go and we're going to update all these records that are following this certain criteria, but you have something wrong with your filter or you have something wrong with the data you're feeding into that field where, again, like you're talking about, you're feeding in last name and last name instead of first name, last name, right? You could do something like that. And now if you run that against your database or against hundreds of records, all of those are changed instantly. And so that's where being able to go in and, undelete in or unchange in mass and revert that data back is where it's important, because with the integrations, you can really do some heavy duty damage very, very quickly.
Absolutely. Before the call, Jade, I'm going to throw to you for a second here. We were doing a little warm up for this conversation. And Jade, you said, not in our CRM systems, not in our database tools and things that we use, but you were talking about like in the world of Office products or like Google Workspace products, the prevalence of undo buttons.
Revert changes more. Yeah, it's
Changes.
like I screw up like publishing something that looks absolutely ridiculous on a website, and there's easily like history, go back to that one. Similarly with, spreadsheets. If I've completely botched something and I just want to go back and undo isn't cutting it, I can go to revision history, pick a date and time and be like, go back there. But CRMs don't have that, and it's frightening. Because you can't, if you just want to undo, there isn't some like, just whatever it looked like here, can we do that? Some sort of like revert function would be super great, but as of right now, that just doesn't exist. And it's weird because it's like the most precious asset is like your stuff.
Absolutely.
And like the Google Sheets has each cell has a history as well. So you can go to cell level history and revert just a cell if you need to. Yeah.
Right. So with that, I want to transition the first 40% of the webinar today. Like I wanted, people who own CRM accounts or own databases for their business to think about the things that go wrong with data, just so that you can, go through your day deciding how much of a risk is that based on who you've got involved in your business, and two, how are you going to manage that, hedge against that in whatever way you choose to do that. I did mention, and one of the reasons why I wanted to see more of the CRM Back-Up.com product that Jeff has put together is because there is a bit of a gap in our marketplace right now for a third-party tool to come in and help facilitate backups, right? How do we go from, on one hand, totally blindly trusting the SaaS company to do the full database backup, on one hand, to being like a total data nerd doing your own backups on the other hand? How do you find some third party that's going to take care of that in the middle? And again, this is not about any other company, but there was a gap in the marketplace that emerged last year. There was a service provider that lots and lots of people who were using, and that product kind of fell away. Nothing happened to people's data. That product of just facilitating backups didn't, kind of keep the popularity that it once had. And I know, Jeff, you felt that pain and you felt that gap, and you decided to build something to fill that in. So if the audience is game for it, if Greg and Jade are game for it, I would like to give you the stage exclusively for a little while here, and you can show us what you've come up with, what kind of people you think it's a good fit for, and really anything you want to share about the product. Okay. Greg says,
I'll go through. I have a slide presentation because I've had disasters on live demos in the past, so I'm trying to avoid some of those hiccups that could be happening. But yeah, as far as who this is for, it's really for anybody with a CRM system that integrates with what we have, which is Keap or Go High Level. If you have data, you need to make sure that you keep that data safe. And I know that, you can go to Keap directly, as we've talked about. You can go there, you can get the information, you can have them back it up. But again, it's typically going to take 7 to 14 days, and it's going to cost you some money there. And the time that you lose in the middle of that is really the time that we're trying to recoup for people, so they can have instant access to the information they need to get. Same thing with High Level. They have a system where they do have the ability to go and see some information and get some of the information. But if you wanted to restore that data, you're going back and you're restoring it like copying and pasting one item at a time, which if you did something with automation or something in mass is going to be a massive time suck for you to go in and take care of that. Whereas the CRM system, you can go in, and I'll show you that you can go in and undo multiple things all at once. So I'll go ahead and I'll share my screen. And I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Again, this is really what I was going to do in terms of showing you guys the internal system. So I'll just go through here and show you very quickly. The CRM Backup, that's the website you're going to see when you get there. Whenever you get in, we're going to have you sign up. Just pick the plan that's right for you. The biggest difference between the plans are the amount of time that we retain your data, 30 days, 6 months, 1 year, or the number of contacts. Everything else is pretty much the same throughout the system. Once you do go in and sign up for the program that you want, you're going to have an authorization screen. It's going to take you internally, and you're going to go up here and you're going to click the authorize button. That'll walk you through that process of entering an authorization code that we email you, and then that will connect your, in this case, I'm walking through the Keap version. It'll connect your Keap version, and you'll see up here in the top corner that you have the information for the account that you're tied into. That will tell you that your data is there. As soon as you do that, it starts the backup. Depending on the number of contacts you have, it could take an hour or two to get everything backed up. And then it's backing up data from now going forward. So you're not going to be able to, one question a lot of people have is like, well, do I get all my historical stuff? No, you're going to have your data from the point that you have it right now going forward. One of the things on our roadmap is trying to get some historical data you could upload into it, but that's on the roadmap still right now. So once you get in here, I just want to explain the topside navigation. So topside navigation, we're going to have information where you can go to get your contacts. You can go to look at your orders. You can go to your deleted contacts specifically for that. You can go in. We have a feedback button. We'd love to hear feedback on what you guys think we still need to add to the system. And then we have a roadmap of things we already have in process. The main navigation is going to be just below that. This is where you can go in and you can look for the ID, the contact ID, if you happen to know that. Typically you don't, because you know an email address or a name. You don't know the exact contact ID, but if you did, you could go there. A phone number, a last name, or the email address. So any of these items are things that you can go in, enter into this database to find somebody. So in the case of husband and wife, credit cards back and forth, you could go with last name. Maybe you know their email address, something along those lines. Maybe you know the phone number because you have a Post-it note where you wrote the phone number to call them. You can put any of those items in here and it's going to go and find the contact record based on that information. Then down below, you're going to have the most recent contacts that were uploaded. Typically, those are not the people you need to go after. You're going to be searching inside the system for something. So now we go in and you can view the details of a contact by clicking on the View Details link. You can see the notes that are archived on this person from that contact, and you can see their orders as well. I'm going to walk you through each one of those here in just a moment. So if you wanted to view the notes, I'm going to go through the notes and the orders first because those are the easiest, and then the details for the contacts are a little more robust. But if you click on the Notes tab, it's going to give you this screen. You're going to see we have the note ID, the contact ID, the title of the note on that record, the body of the note, the updated information, the last update, who updated it, and then whether that note was actually deleted. So deleted is going to show true or false. So you can either see that that note was deleted and you could then go to restore it, or you can see that it was not a deleted record. So that's just going to give you the ability. You can click on any one of those. It'll pull up the information for you and you can see what's there. Inside of orders, you're going to be able to do basically the same thing. It gives you the order ID, the contact ID, the title of the order, the total amount that was due, the total amount that was paid, and then you can click on View Order, and when you click that, it'll take you straight into, in this case, Keap. It'll take you straight into Keap to that order, and you can work on working with it. Inside of the contact details, this is where most people are going to live. That's why I went through the notes and the orders very quickly just to show you those screens and what was there. Most people are going to work within the contact details. So what you're going to do here is you're going to go in, you're going to click on the View Details button for one of the items. If you see that contact record there and you're like, oh, this is the one I want, you can hit View Details. Usually what we're going to do is do a search by last name, and then we'll hit enter. So on here, up here I put in a last name, and then we would search by last name, and then that would pull up the contact record, and you would be able to see the information that's in here on that contact record. So you can see that there's a history here of all of the line items. You can see all the changes that were done on this contact record. So inside of here, we're going to have the change history, which is going to show us the field name, so you know exactly which field in your database we're working with. It's going to show us the new value and the old value. So this is where if you have that case of somebody changed a phone number, somebody changed an email address, you're going to see the old value on the right. You will see the new value on the left. So you have that historic line by line history of your changes that are made on every field inside of here. Not only standard fields, but also all of your custom fields. Then you have the updated by and the updated time. Now this is where, Cameron, we were having that conversation about the bad actor who was going in and changing the owner ID. We were able to look here and see that the owner ID had been changed from an old person to this new person, and we could see that it was their email address that did the changing. And so being able to see that history of who made the changes is good for several reasons. One, in the case of the bad actor, it can help you identify that. In the case of a mistake, right, you may have not trained your receptionist properly to update information the proper way. You're able to look at that and then be able to go back to that person and go train them a little bit better. Hey, we don't do it this way, we do it this way. So you're able to go in, see who made the change, and then work on helping to educate them and train them a little bit better. Also, if it's done by the system, it will be identified, it says unknown. That means it's a system update, so you know now you need to look at something that's inside of automation and inside of an integration to be able to go in and troubleshoot that.
Jeff, can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yes,
I know
absolutely.
you're in a groove here on your PowerPoint, so I don't want to derail you too hard here, but I do have a comment.
Absolutely.
And then there's a couple of questions that have come up in the chat. The comment is that, like, when you showed this to me back in November, this was the thing, because I think Greg and I looked at a lot of different products back in November. We were at a convention, right? So we got to see a lot of things, and like, you know, you pulled this up on your laptop, and this was the kind of epiphany moment for me where it was like, we're not just looking at large chunks of data or an entire before and after of a contact record. We're looking at individual movements on individual fields, which was like a bit of an epiphany, like a really, you know, kind of important moment for me. So now I'm seeing it again, and I'm feeling it again the second time. The two questions, I think one you might want to answer right away, and the other, maybe there's a naturally occurring answer later on. You can let us know. The first is, you said that the data collected from this day forward, does that mean that purchase history is not collected? I just want to clarify. I think that what we mean is that the change history, we don't know what changed before today, but the snapshot of what exists, like if there are 50 orders already on that customer's record, at the time that you log into CRM Backup for the first time, well, those are all getting sucked in, right? The old data is coming in, just not the old changes are being recorded. Is that fair to say?
Very, very good differentiation there, yes. So if there's a contact record in your database today that has notes and has orders, we're pulling all of those notes and all of those orders historically on that person to update their record as of where they are today, correct? And then as we move forward, if a note is deleted, a note is added, it will get added to that same thing. You're correct, yes.
And the other question, which again, you might answer or there might be a naturally occurring answer later on, is Jim's question of what if you have multiple databases on multiple platforms? So feel free to answer it now, or feel free to say that's coming already, whenever you're comfortable with that question.
So the question being, you have multiple Keap accounts, or a Keap account and a Go High Level account?
I think so. Okay. I think so, yeah.
So at this point in time, you would be signing up for each of those individually. You would log into each one individually in there. One of the things that's on our short list that we want to do is we're going to be putting together an agency model where whenever you go up here and you go to the ID, you would be able to click, and I don't know if you're familiar with Plus This, but like in Plus This, you can click and you can go through all the different accounts that you've been given access to. It'll be the same thing. You'll be able to click on your account or go into a client account and be able to manage their account with a single logon. So that is a short list item in our roadmap of what we're doing. So if you're if you're a partner with one of these systems and you have a lot of different accounts, you'll be able to access all of those with one single login. So cool. Want me to continue through this process? Yeah, no, absolutely. And stop me. I'm trying to go fast so I don't bog down in the details. I just want to give an overview of what's there so people can see what's there. So But yeah, so in here, again, we have the ability to see the update, who updated the contact record. Again, that's great for, looking for the bad actors, looking for training opportunities, looking for, somebody swears they didn't do it and it's their account that did it. It's like, okay. So, and then finally, you can go through and you can restore the item simply by clicking restore this line. So you can go, as you mentioned, Cam, great thing is it's not just where it's like here's a dump of the database and here's a dump of the database. It's here's line item things that you can change. So if you have to go back and restore a single line, you can go right here, click restore this line. It'll restore that line item, that field data specifically. And then we also have the capability here to choose multiples at one time. So whenever you hover over one of these lines, you're going to get the ability to select multiple line items. So if you know that you undeleted a bunch of people in bulk or you changed a bunch of content in bulk, you can go through here and restore this in bulk as well. So when you get in here, you can click this restore version button after you've selected the different line items that you want to restore. You simply restore values and it will go ahead and restore all of them for you. So, there's that button. So now again, when we go in here and we're going to do a search by last name, again, that's usually the way we go because we know that we worked with Joe Smith or whatever. We want to look for Smith and we can see all the Smiths that come up. When we do that, you're going to see here, it shows you all of the different contact IDs of all of the people that had that last name. Now, obviously, this is a demo that we have set up. So we have the name of our technical services manager, and here he has multiple accounts here. Now, inside of here, you get the contact IDs for his individual, and then you can go in and you can click on View Contacts Changes. So every contact you go into, you can look and see what the changes are to that contact. This is the field that's really, I think, to me, super important, is you have the ability to see if that contact has been deleted or not. So it's going to come back as false or true. You can see the data on the deleted records to determine if you need to restore that individual. So, so next here, we're going to go in, we're going to view the contact changes on one of these records that has been deleted. When you go in, you get the change history. So just like an active contact that you have, you're going to see the whole change history of that contact before you deleted it to make sure, hey, this is the correct record that I'm working with. If they have multiple records like you saw, you're going to see that. So then here what you can do is you can either click Restore Contact or you can click Restore Contact with Tags Overlay. What that does is that gives you the ability to answer the question, do you want to restore the tags on this contact? Now, those people that are building using trigger action system tags where they trigger action and immediately remove that tag that drives action, people that build their systems that way, they'll say, yes, restore the tags because that will give me the history and status and profile and all of that for that particular individual. If you're not building that way inside of your automation and applying the tags is going to suddenly fire off all these different automations, then you will not want to restore your tags. So just need to be very aware of how you build inside your system to determine whether or not you want to restore your tags. So we give you that capability to be able to say yes or no whenever you go to restore. So that's really all I wanted to show on the on the system itself. I didn't want to go into a real big detail, but I wanted to give you a quick overview of what's available to you inside line item changes and changes in bulk.
Man, look at all that. Whew! Look at Jade's face. Just like,
woo, it's hot
so
in
much
here.
stuff. You nailed it. I think what's really cool about it is the level of detail, right? The was this, now that, right? So at the top of the call, we talked about the CRM service provider is backing up the entire database. Presumably, they could relatively easily roll back the entire database. What exactly, just to recap, are the layers here, right? It's an entire contact record gets restored, an entire note, an entire order, or an individual field in that contact item. Is that kind of the groupings of the four, the
Yeah,
entire
and
contact
that's
record?
really so if you think about like, hey, I need to revert back to yesterday. Well, any sales that you did, any updates that you did, any notes that you took, anything that you did inside your database goes back to yesterday. So everything you did today is gone. Whereas with this system, you're able to go in and instead of saying, give me a mass update to my whole database back to yesterday, you're able to go in and say, hey, I need to go find Joe Smith. He disappeared. And now you see that Mary Smith is there. And you go to that record and look and go, oh, I see. Whenever they paid, they used Mary's credit card. So it changed the name on that. Something along those lines. So you can just restore that one item and you don't wipe out everything else that's happened since yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the big things that's there.
And I think one of the hardest things that people deal with when they're, maybe looking at their data in Google Sheets or in Excel is the connections between that data, right? That note and that order is only valuable if it's attached to a contact, right? Which is interesting that you could kind of like keep all of those connections in order or in place as well. So in just a moment, I'm going to ask folks in the chat here to think about their data and what to do with it. But Jade, Greg, do you have? Let's start with Greg or Jade. Jade, put her hand up.
Go ahead, Jade. Yeah.
Me. What I think is really neat is the granularity and specificity, not just on like which data are we looking at, but what's the action. Because when I think of data recovery, like I said, like 10 minutes ago, I'm like, I think like revert. I think just put it back the way it was. And I think that's really powerful to be like, well, put it back the way it was, except for these people that I screwed up, and put it back in this way because I screwed up in this way. And that's a really important distinction between like full revert and recovery versus, okay, what do you actually want to do because what happened in what volume, in what place, in what way, for how long. That's huge.
Yeah. I will add, like, I started off this call by saying like data security or like data backups is not like the sexiest of topics. But you know what is sexy? Like sleeping soundly at night. Like having the comfort that like if and when something goes wrong, and if you're in small business, you know that it inevitably will, like you have a solution in place. And I fully hope that like you don't need this all the time, but for that moment where you do, it's so comforting to know like, oh, I can fix that and I have a backup or I have a trail of breadcrumbs to follow to unravel like why this took place. And like I would, every business owner can decide whether or not this is a fit for them individually, but like I would always rather you have a solution and not need it than need a solution and not have it. So that's my takeaway here. Yeah, Marjorie's saying sleeping through the night without worry is so sexy. That's what I'm saying here is like I've shifted from an era in my life where like I live off of adrenaline to like, no, what I want is calm and organized and like predictability. And this helps with that. So,
yeah, we should do a survey of entrepreneurs to know when they're falling asleep, what percentage of the time is the thing on their mind, their business. Yeah. Is really interesting. So we have a question from Jim, which I'm going to answer I'm going to ask in just a second, but I do know that maybe some folks will have to jump off as well. So my two things. One is that what action will you take? That could be, and we would love it if we would probably all encourage you to want to try out CRM Back-Up, the product that Jeff just showed us. But also, what are you just going to do to take survey of your business and the risks that are there? Are you doing things to make sure that people can only behave properly inside of your tools? Are you doing things to make sure that your access and information is backed up to the level that you are personally comfortable with? So I'd ask everybody to just, when you disconnect from the call, don't go immediately on to your next thing. Take a minute to think about what all of this information means to you. And my final slide before we get to Jim's question here is if you have any desire to spend more time with Greg, Jade, or Jeff, or me, come and find us in the Monkey Pod membership. The Monkey Pod membership is where people who have taken our courses or see our webinars can also meet with all of the other members and share what you're working on in your automated business experience. So if you're an OG member, we'll see you over there. If you're not an OG member, you should be. Go and join our community. And if you would like to take a look at CRM Back-Up, this very detailed rollback process that Jeff just showed us, you can go ahead and find his website at the URL on the screen, and also, of course, that we'll share with you in the chat here too. So crmbackup.com, we would love if you would go, I'm sure Jeff would love if you would go and check out that new and growing product as well.
All I'll say is, first of all, thanks to Jeff for jumping on with us to share about this, and for stepping up to create this product. I have heard over the past year or so a handful of requests from people in our space looking for a solution like this, and there wasn't one emerging. So Jeff took it upon himself to build one and then to share it with everyone. And because this is a new tool, I know that he is also actively expanding and improving it. So if you find yourself with thoughts or feedback, I can speak for Jeff that he would welcome it, because there is opportunity for them to really make this a robust solution tailored to whatever your needs might be. So if there's something you're reaching for, don't discount it if it doesn't exist yet, because this tool is new and is still evolving as well. That's it for me. Jade, anything from you?
Same, just gratitude and emphasis on the community. Like, we only learn about things like this existing, and we only meet people like Jeff when you hang out in rooms like the Monkey Pod Grove, which is what we call the OG membership space, because trees, groves, it's cute. It's cute. We're cute.
We are.
Thanks.
And Jeff, closing thoughts or remarks from you?
Yeah, just I obviously I'd love if you guys would sign up. I hope you never need it.
Right.
Kind of like Cameron said, right? It's like insurance. Yeah, you hope you never need it, but that's why you get it. But yeah, I just want to thank you guys for having me be part of Monkey Pod webinar. I love the community, and any questions you have, and if, like you mentioned, if there's something specific, please use that feedback button. Let us know what you're looking for. That's how we came up with some of the things we have in there already. And we're always looking to find out, because we use the system a certain way. Everybody uses it differently. So we love to get the feedback on what you're looking for inside the system. So again, thank you very much for having me.
Thanks.
Welcome. Thanks everyone for being here. Bye.
Guys, take
Adios.
care.